Imagine a standard, heavy oak table. The everyday person walks into a room, looks at it, and assumes they know exactly what it is. It is solid, it is brown, and its existence is obvious. But move around the room, and the light hits the wood differently, turning a dark brown into a bright white glare. Walk to the other side, and the rectangular top compresses into an acute shape. Run that polished surface under a microscope, and the smoothness vanishes. You are looking at a jagged, mountainous terrain full of fissures and alien ridges. What you are actually experiencing isn't the table itself. You are experiencing light, color, and tactile pressure. Philosophers call these raw, subjective inputs sense data. Because our senses only feed us this shifting stream of subjective sense data, our direct perception cannot act as absolute proof that a physical table actually sits in the room. If everything we know arrives as private sense data, the entire physical world around us might just be a complex, persistent dream happening exclusively inside our own minds. In the 17th century, René Descartes pushed this systemic doubt to its extreme, realizing there was no way to prove the external world was real. Immanuel Kant later called this failure to prove a physical reality a scandal to philosophy. Fast forward to the 20th century, and a philosopher named Bertrand Russell decided to tackle this scandal head-on using strict logical reconstruction. Russell recognized that we have to find a rigorous way to prove the physical universe exists without leaning on our basic, easily fooled physical senses. To build a solid logical foundation, Russell had to find something that couldn't be doubted. Even if we can't be sure the wooden table exists, we can be absolutely certain that we are experiencing the sensation of seeing brown and feeling hardness. He termed this direct, unmediated awareness of our own inner experiences knowledge by acquaintance. When you feel a pain or see a flash of light, you are acquainted with it. It is undeniable. Knowing an internal feeling is an entirely different mechanism than knowing an external object. You can be wrong about the physical object causing the pain, but you cannot be wrong about the fact that you are feeling it. This knowledge by acquaintance provides a bedrock of indubitable truth, but it also traps us in our own heads. We need a logical bridge to get from the private mind to the public physical world. So how do we safely cross that gap? How do we use private sense data to confirm that public physical objects actually occupy space? Russell's answer relies on inference and the principle of the best explanation. We have to look at the gaps in our sense data and choose the most logical reason for them. If you see a cat on the sofa, look away, and then see the cat on the floor, the simplest explanation is that a physical cat moved through independent space while you weren't watching. Inventing a complex mechanism where the cat vanishes into a dream and reappears in a new spot requires far more mental gymnastics. This leads to what Russell calls knowledge by description. We know the physical cat exists solely because an independent physical object is the necessary logical cause of the sense data we experience. Our entire grasp of the physical universe relies entirely on this logical inference. We never make direct contact with reality, we calculate its probability. But inference comes with a glaring vulnerability. If we are constantly guessing the causes of our sense data, how do we know when a belief is true and when it is false? This animated diagram shows Russell's correspondence theory of truth, using the famous play Othello as an example. You have a subject, Othello, projecting a mental model involving two objects, Desdemona and Cassio, and an expected connecting relation, which is loving. Othello believes Desdemona loves Cassio. That specific belief is false, because in the independent physical world, the loving relation does not actually exist to cement those two specific objects together. A belief is only true when its internal mental arrangement perfectly maps onto a complex, independent fact in the external world. Without that exact correspondence, it's simply an error. All of this strict logic leads to a rather unsettling conclusion. Absolute mathematical certainty about the physical world is impossible for the human mind to achieve. Russell contrasts this enlightened uncertainty with the worldview of what he calls the practical man, someone who blindly trusts their instinct and common sense without question. The practical man lives in a psychological prison. Because he never doubts, his world becomes finite, obvious and firmly closed off to unfamiliar possibilities. Demanding absolute certainty is a limitation that shrinks the mind. It is not a strength that protects it. This brings us to Russell's ultimate thesis. The true value of philosophy lies precisely in its inability to provide definite answers. The rigorous act of questioning the obvious, like staring at a wooden table and realizing you have no idea what it actually is, enlarges our intellectual imagination and frees us from the tyranny of custom. The goal of philosophical contemplation is to adapt the self to the infinite greatness of the universe, rather than shrinking the universe down to fit neat, comfortable human desires. Through the liberating act of philosophical doubt, we escape the strife of our private instinctive prisons. We become free citizens of the universe.